Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, where we explore what it really means to live consciously. I'm Brent Riseborough, building designer, energy assessor, and the founder of Conscious Design Studio, where we take an integrated approach that brings together thoughtful design and building science to help everyday Australians create energy-efficient homes that are people-focused, cost-conscious, and built to last. From designing low-impact architecture and growing your own food, to embracing the circular economy and finding smarter solutions to help reduce waste. This podcast explores how we can live with greater intention, deeper connection, and a stronger sense of care for the planet. Each week, we'll share practical ideas, inspiring stories, and honest conversations with industry experts, thought leaders, and everyday people who are making small changes with a big impact. So whether you're renovating, rethinking your lifestyle, or just curious about sustainable living, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to deep dive into why I'm starting this podcast and give you a bit of a background about who I am, what I do, and how all of this came about. I grew up in Wagga Wagga, a regional city in New South Wales surrounded by farming communities. It's a warm, temperate climate, so think hot, dry summers and reasonably cool winters. Most of the homes I lived in or visited growing up were built to survive the heat. The focus was on shading, catching breezes, and trying to keep things cool. We were used to sweating through summer nights, and avoiding using the oven in the middle of the day was just common sense. Staying warm in winter, that really wasn't an issue. Dad was a carpenter, Mum was a stay-at-home mum. I was always around construction sites or the factory, tools and drawings. From an early age, I had a hands-on education in buildability. I loved seeing how things went together and how good intentions don't always translate to good results if you don't think it through properly. Watching Dad work, seeing how much pride he took in getting the details right definitely left a mark on me. Without realising it at the time, it really gave me the push to explore design and construction more seriously. It laid the groundwork for the kind of designer and the person I've grown into today. At school, I naturally lent into design and technology. I loved how things were made, how space could be shaped to work better. And eventually I studied architecture and building design. I quickly developed a deep interest in energy-efficient homes, solar passive design, and buildings that actually performed for the people inside them. Years later, my wife and I moved to Bungendore, a small town just outside of Canberra, and this is where the climate shock came in. Unlike Wagga, which is warm temperate, Bungendore sits firmly in a cold climate zone. Here it can drop from -5 in winter and go all the way into the 40s in summer. It's a massive temperature range to design for, and we quickly learnt that homes, even new ones, just aren't built for it. We bought what we could afford at the time, a log cabin. It looked rustic and charming, but the charm wore off pretty quickly when we realised what we were in for. We moved in at the end of 2019, just as the Black Summer bushfires hit. The smoke was suffocating. Our home was so leaky you could smell it inside before you even saw it outside. On top of that, it was 40+ degrees on some days, and we just couldn't keep the house cool no matter how much we tried. Then, just as summer ended, COVID hit. Like everyone, we were locked down. But in our case, we were trapped in a freezing, under-insulated home through one of the coldest winters we'd experienced. At times, it was just as cold inside as it was outside. There were mornings when we woke up to frost on the inside of the windows. The house had next to no insulation. The walls were logs, batten, and a bit of plasterboard. There was an old imitation gas fireplace at one end and a small, slow combustion heater at the other end. And then there was the layout. A sunroom with huge panes of single glazing facing south, internal posts everywhere, narrow corridors, clunky circulation. The house felt tight, disconnected, and just not fit for family life. It was uncomfortable, it was inefficient, and it was unhealthy. And to top all of that, it was badly orientated, meaning we had no or minimal natural light into living spaces. We had big dreams of rebuilding. But with COVID, supply chain chaos, the war in Ukraine, building costs just exploded. That dream quickly slipped out of reach. So we turned to the cabin itself. What could we do to make this place work, to make it livable? We started to plan our own renovation and retrofit, but this wasn't going to be a luxury renovation. This was about survival. It was about making the house functional, warm, and efficient. We wrapped the building in a new stud frame to allow for proper insulation. We upgraded the windows, we removed internal posts, and installed a structural beam to open up the living space. We rebuilt an old enclosed veranda, and we created a house that was still humble yet simple, but one that finally worked with the climate instead of against it. We also started getting smarter about how we used our energy. We upgraded appliances one at a time and looked at where heat was being lost and learned to think about comfort differently, not as luxury, but as something we could build on day by day with a series of smarter choices. Ultimately, so far, we've done it for under $300,000 as owner builders. We managed trades strategically, we did much of the planning and coordination ourselves, and we learnt an enormous amount, not just about construction, but about resilience, patience, and rethinking what a dream home really looks like. It's still not finished.
There's some cladding and finishing touches to go, but it's our home and it works.
That experience has shaped me. It made me want to start Conscious Design Studio, and it's a large part of why I'm starting this podcast. Because no one should be freezing in their own home. No one should be living with smoke and condensation and mold. And no one should feel like their only option is to bulldoze and start again. There are smarter ways to design, smarter ways to build, and smarter ways to renovate, and I want to share them with you. I also wanted to talk about the quieter shifts that have come with this journey. For example, we started growing our own food, and let me tell you, it's been a learning curve. Moving from Wagga, where citrus trees thrive and tomatoes grow like weeds, to Bungendore with its frost-prone seasons and short growing windows meant starting from scratch in what we thought we knew. We've experimented with different planting times, greenhouse setups, frost covers, and no-dig beds. We've killed a lot of plants. We've succeeded with some others. We've realised that a zucchini grown with care in the right season can feel like a trophy. And then there's compost. We've gone through every version of it. We've gone through open bays and tumblers to worm farms. Some of it's worked. Some of it's been overrun with ants or just turned into a cold, wet pile, but we kept at it because the act of trying matters. We also started to think differently about water and how to store it, how to use it, how to reduce our runoff. We got chooks, and suddenly the whole idea of waste and scrap shifted. What used to be bin fodder became a daily ritual. What can we feed them? What goes in the compost? What can we reuse? And in all of this, what I've come to understand is that living consciously isn't about being perfect. It's about paying attention to what you value most. It's about aligning the way that you live with the things that you care about. It's not always easy, it's rarely convenient, but it's worth it. Because comfort shouldn't be reserved for the wealthy. Healthy homes shouldn't be a luxury, and small, considered actions like sealing a gap or planting a seed can have a really big impact. That is what this podcast is about. Small changes with a big impact. This is for homeowners, for renters, for families, for retirees, for people planning their dream home, and for those just trying to make their current one a little more bearable. Wherever you are, whoever you are, there is something here for you. Thanks for joining me on the very first episode of the Conscious Living podcast. If this episode has sparked something for you, I'd love it if you could follow us on socials, leave a quick review, or share it with someone who's on a similar journey. At Conscious Design Studio, we create energy-efficient homes that are tailored to the way you live, comfortable, cost-effective, and designed with long-term performance in mind. Whether you're renovating, building new, or looking to improve your existing home, our integrated approach combines thoughtful design with in-house energy assessments to deliver spaces that work hard for you and the planet. You can find out more about our work at Conscious Design Studio via our website at www.conscious-studio.com.au or follow us on socials. In episode 2 of the podcast, I'll be joined by Tim Forsey, energy assessor, best-selling author, and one of the leading voices on home electrification in Australia. We chat about how to make your home more comfortable and affordable without relying on gas. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Living podcast, where small changes make a big impact.